For 30 years, I worked on cars. I built cars. I used to buy old muscle cars and just completely redo them from the ground up. So I consider myself, I'm not going to call myself an expert, but I'm well versed on cars. But even somebody who knows a lot about cars, setups are a completely different animal. This is engineering level stuff. You really have to be an engineer to understand this stuff. This is why people make money selling setups online for iRacing. Very few people fully understand what it takes to make these race cars handle better and go faster. And for every driver, it's different because there's also driving style that's involved. So no developer has ever attempted to bridge that gap. Now, we have seen it once, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that. In Project Cars 2, they actually had something called the race engineer. And you could go there, you can answer questions or give complaints to the race engineer on several different aspects of the car, whether it's suspension, brakes, or anything else, right? And the race engineer would literally give you several options on things you could try, and you could click on it and then go out and you would literally immediately see or feel a difference, right? It actually worked really well. Now, it's not exactly the way I would do it, which is what I'm going to talk about today, but for the love of God, I really hope that iRacing somehow gets this, on their radar, because I promise you, if you address this alone would elevate the experience for almost everyone, because as iRacing has talked about, which is what one of the things that excites me, is that they understand that there's has to be more to these games than just jump in the car and race. There's an entire world that we've been missing, right? Um, and that is off the track stuff, things you have to deal with, and it does look like they are focused on stuff like that, which is really good, and it is exciting for me. But I know this isn't something that's probably on their radar. So that's why I'm putting this out there. But bridging that gap for the player, I think would elevate the experience. So how do you do that, right? Because it's tedious, right? When you go to a setup menu, it's like, for most people, you're lost. It's very technical, and we've never had a way to have the game guide us through the setup process. There has to be a way to do that without it feeling like a chore. It's not fun. Like, nobody wants to spend an hour just trying to figure out what they're doing. Like, that's not fun. You have to bridge that gap where there's immersion and you feel like you're actively involved in improving the car's performance and working on the setup without actually needing a fucking engineering degree. And this is where they can bridge that gap and actually make it a fun experience and immersive experience. So think about this. How many people actually spend time testing or in practice, right? Very few people. You may do a few laps here and there just to get a feel of the track, or if you actually know what you're doing when it comes to setups, then you'll probably spend time there. But most of us just don't. So that to me would add to the immersion. That throughout the race week, I have a lot of other things that have nothing to do with jumping into the car and racing, right? And car setups, working on making the car better, performance and all that. That has to be part of it. And I would love to be able to, like, okay, we're going to practice, and now between you and the crew chief, you're going to work on the setup and actually make the car better for race day. That is immersive. Also gives you that sense of accomplishment I was talking about that's been missing. It's like, when you jump in the car on race day and you know that you spent time and you actively were able to make the car better for the race, that adds a sense of accomplishment. And that is something that's been completely missing from NASCAR games. So this is important. Please forgive me. I know I kind of regurgitate a lot of stuff that I talk about, but I can't help it. That's just my way of doing it. So hopefully you guys are not like just completely asleep. But what you're looking at here is from NASCAR 21, right? So what I'm just showing you, right, conceptually, is what I'd like to see. That you go to practice or testing wherever, you pick a racetrack, let's say Charlotte, and you're in the garage, you're in the car, and all of these drivers now have this tablet, right? And that tablet shows them lap times, comparison to other drivers. There's a ton of information, right? And this should be part of your user interface hub, right? When you're in practice, you're in the car, and you see the crew chief here, and you're in the picture. Forget about this. You're in the garage, right, in Charlotte Motor Speedway, and there's communication between you and the crew chief. Obviously, I want to hear the crew chief talking, right? So audio is very important. I don't want everything to just be text, right? We got to kind of get away from that, or at least elevate that experience. But you're in the car, you got your tablet. The tablet is going to be your way to communicate with the crew chief. So on this tablet, you have all your pertinent information, lap times, all that stuff. So let's get away from this. Hold on a second. Let me close up on that. Bear with me. Where am I? Here. Okay. So let me switch this so make sure you guys can see it. Okay, so now what you're looking at. Now you're in the car, you're staring at your tablet, and this is what you're gonna see, right? The map of whatever track you're at. Doesn't matter which track you're at, a simple map, right? And you see the Charlotte Oval. And each corner is numbered, right? I know you guys can't see over here, my face is over here, but let's just say now you're in the car, you do a few laps, you come back in the garage. Your crew chief is in, right there by the window net. There are guys, like whatever, working on the shocks. They got the hood up, whatever it is, right? This is all part of the presentation. But the crew chief is talking to you or asking you, what's going on with the car. You got your tablet, and on the tablet, this is part of the user interface. You're looking at it. So let's just say you got a problem entering turn 3. So on the track map, everything would be divided, right, into sections. So you got the backstretch here. There would be a line here to entry, right? So where the number 3 is, there would be another slash. So that's a section. Then from 3 to the middle, that's the exit of turn 3. And then there would be another slash here. Then entry to 4, there would be a slash here where the 4 is. And then from 4 to where here, pit entrance, there would be another slash, so on and so forth around the track. So let's just say your problem is, or you feel like I got an issue entering turn 3, right? So you would click on this between here and where the second slash is here. You click on that, and that section right here would be highlighted, and then you would have questions pop up. And then, like, you could say cars loose on entry, or it's tight on entry, or whatever is pertinent, right? So we're going to get into that. I'm going to show you now, but I'm just focused now on the user interface in the laptop, in the car. You click on these sections, and then it takes you to a Q&A, right? So then you can complain to your crew chief, What is the car doing? What do you need? Um, or what you think you need, right? And the crew chief is going to guide you through this. He might make suggestions, whatever the case may be. So let's go over here. Let me make sure this is okay. You guys can see that? Okay. Let me get back to that. Okay. All right. So let me pop this up. So this is Project Cars 2. So I'm gonna let this video play. Man, it's a crappy all right, hopefully it gets a better quality. But this is Project Cars 2. This is the race engineer. So just, I'm going to let this play out. Please be patient.
All right, so we go into the tuning setup and we have the race engineer here and the edit setup. So I just want to pop in and show you something quickly on that.
Give me a second. I don't. Let's see. It's 120p. I'm just trying to get you a better. Okay, now it's clear.
The edit setup, looking on this car, one of the things we will quickly look at is the...
So, okay. Obviously, when I talk about this automatic crew chief thing, you're still going to have an option to do everything yourself, right? Obviously. So what you're looking at here is where you can edit the setup, as we've seen with most NASCAR games, right? You go in, there's a ton of shit but looking at this, I'm just telling you, most people don't fucking have a clue what this is. And you got tires, brake chassis, suspension, dampers, engine stuff, ECU, differential. So it's just a ton of things to consider on the setup of a race car. Not only don't most people know what they're doing here, it's tedious. It's nobody wants to play a game to feel like they have chores to do, right? This is detaching from the experience. So what most people do is they copy and paste other people's setups. So they'll go online, they'll find a setup, they'll write down the numbers, and then they'll go in the game and they'll punch in all those numbers, and then they go out and hope that they're faster, and that it helps them, right? And even when it helps them, right, it takes away from that sense of accomplishment I'm talking about, because all you're doing is copy and pasting someone else's setup. And it's very detaching from the experience, right? When you're playing the game, you should always be completely immersed, right? If it's a good game. So that's what I want. So if you want to mess with it yourself, that option is there. But that's not what this video is about. So you want the option to have the game guide you through the process and help you and make you feel like you are an active participant in setting up your car.
The brake pressure, 89% is set in the car at the moment, and the brake balance is 55 front, 45 rear. So I'm just going to quick back out of that, and we'll go in and have a look at what the race engineer is and what he does to your setups. So clicking on the race engineer, here we have some options to have a look at with the race engineer is the braking, downforce, suspension, and gearing.
So as you can see here, it breaks down every aspect of the car, right? Braking, downforce, suspension, gearing. So you can click on any one of these areas and make improvements to the car. A lot of these, and almost all of them, will help you with almost any aspect. Like I said, if let's say you're too loose on entry into turn 3, you clicked on that on the map, then it brings this up, right? And when you go into these sections, Q&A. So
Today we'll just look at the braking one, and clicking in the braking tab, the race engineer will ask you some questions. What is the issue with the braking on your car? And he'll give you some options, or she will give you some options depending on which engineer is working in your crew in this modern world. So some of the questions are, I'm not stopping in time, I'm stopping too quickly, I keep sliding when I'm braking. So you can click on one of these options here and we'll start having a look at some different things. So clicking on that first one, if you're not already doing so, I'd recommend braking a little earlier for the turns. Aside from that, changes to brake pressure or brake bias may also help. We can either look at increasing the brake pressure to improve brake power, or we can shift the brake bias. We can look at increasing brake pressure, which will make them more powerful. So having a look here, that's the options that they give you is increasing the brake pressure from 89 to 90%, moving the brake bias, or we can just go back to the race engineer menus or the other menus. So have a quick look at here. So remember how I had the tuning was at 89%. So if I click on that, it'll take it to 90%. And just going on here, I'm not stopping in time.
So as you just saw there, right? So you got options, and you pick one, it'll make the adjustment, right? The crew chief will make that adjustment. Then you can go out, run a couple laps, and see what that feels like. But you can always come back and click on the same exact thing. It's still not stopping in time, and it'll just
stopping in time. One
and
of the other options was, well,
it'll
it
go
can
up to
show you here by
91.
already changing it to 90%. And now it's offering to change to 91%. We can also look at moving the brake bias. So we might change it to, say, moving the brake bias a little bit more rearwards, considering this car is a mid-engine car, can certainly use a little bit more rear brake in my own opinion, but everybody a bit different on that one. So if we move the brake bias rearwards from current balance of 55-45 to 54-46 more to the rear. And so we've made those couple of changes. Return to the menu. We'll just back out of here, go into our setup and have a look, and you can see the changes that have already been made here. The engineer has done for us. Brake pressure is at 90% now. And
So, like I said, the crew chief should guide you to having solutions, right? For whatever issues you're having. If you just go into the editing thing and you really, like I said, most people don't fucking know what to do. They're like, what do I change? That's what the crew chief should be for. And he should say, okay, if you're not stopping in time, let's increase that brake pressure. Or, there's other like you saw, there's other options. And then when as you see, he made the change. Um
the brake balance at 54-46. So when you're happy with what the engineer suggested, you want to try them out, click done, and you will need to save your setup. I've got one here the other day I was trying out. So save your setup. I'm just going to discard it for now. And that's what the race engine is all about. So he'll give you some tips on which things to change, and he can change them for you. Save your setup, go out and enjoy your tunes in this fan.
all right. So basically that's what I'm talking about. Now I played this game. Um so I remember using it, and I remember it actually works. And it's not exactly the way I would do it, but it's an example of how this can work. Okay? Hold on a second. Yeah. So this is what I'd like to see. And then do it your own way. And add audio where you can hear the crew chief talking to you. Depending on what you click on, he should uh, audibly talk to you. You should hear it. Like, all right, we're gonna increase the brake pressure. Go out, take a few, run a few laps, and let me know how that is. And then you can do that as many times as you need to during practice, during testing and tuning, whatever the case may be. You save all of the changes made. Now you have your own custom setup. So when you go to race day, you feel like, hey, I worked on this in practice. Me and the crew chief and the car engineer, whatever you want to call it, we all came up with this setup. And now you're like, how is this going to run? How is this going to work during the race? And that whole aspect of the game would elevate the experience completely. It's never been even attempted in any NASCAR game, and I think it's way overdue. It's 2025. you got to start paying attention to these details in the game. And just ask yourself, how much more time would you actually spend in testing, in practice, right? Focusing on that stuff if you had the game guide you through the process. Not only is it more immersive, it would actually be entertaining and it gives you a sense of accomplishment. I cannot stress enough how much these games desperately would benefit from this, addressing this aspect of these games. It's long overdue, and I just it's such a huge gap between the average player and the real world that has not been explored. This is one major way of doing that, of bridging that gap. So I I, I really hope that iRacing at some point has a plan for this. And that's why I'm putting this out there. And in the hopes that somehow, some way, someone stumbles onto this video and maybe it wakes them up and says, you know what? This is a good idea. We really should address this. And this is, they don't have to do it exactly the way I'm saying. The point is that you have that, address that, and that you make players feel that immersion and you bridge that gap. It's very disconnecting, for the experience that you're out looking for to copy and paste some setup someone came up with and you plug it into the into the game, and then you go out and race and it's like, okay, I'm faster now. I don't know why I'm faster, but I am faster. But someone else created this setup and it's like, okay, so what? It's almost like a cheat or a cheat code or just lowering the difficulty level, right? It almost makes it feel like that. And you should feel an involvement. When you play other sports games, like whether it's NBA 2K or MLB The Show, um, usually there's some part of the game where you put work in, off the court, off the field, and it makes you a better player. And it's not just like, oh, yes, a lot of it is just attributes, but and just punching up the numbers. But a lot of it is also practice and taking batting practice and doing all these things. And then now you raise that attribute, but you actually put in the work. So it does add to a sense of accomplishment, right? And NASCAR games need this. Players need this, right? And it makes you feel involved. So that's all right. Let me see something. Yeah, the video's pretty fucking long. I'm sorry, guys. I hope you were able to sit through it. And I really hope someone somewhere at iRacing that's connected with the development of this game uh, stumbles onto this and maybe says, hey, we're going to put this on our to do list. This is something we should address. And it would definitely elevate the experience. I will be putting out other videos. I'm going to talk about online. Uh, so there's a lot of other things to talk about, but this is one that's always been in the back of my mind. I've talked about this for years, and there just hasn't been even an attempt, right, to address this stuff. And as I showed you here with Project Cars 2, it works. And they were able to do this. This is from years ago. And I've played this game, I've used this, and I can confirm it absolutely works and it absolutely elevated my experience. And I spent time, like, actually working with the engineer and making the car better. And it really added to some sense of accomplishment within the game. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know what you think. I look forward to your comments later.